Right.
So yesterday, what did you do yesterday afternoon?
Well, yesterday afternoon I was down in Chicago doing some stuff with my radio friend Kathy Hart, who was in town.
Oh yeah.
And then I was going to go out to the DeSantis thing in Elmhurst,
but what happened?
I didn't get invited.
Oh.
I was in touch with Jeanne, my friend Jeanne Ives, but
Yeah.
then we lost contact, and I didn't make it out there.
Meaning she didn't call
She
you
didn't
back
hit me
and
back,
You
yeah.
didn't get a ticket in. But it was the big gig in town yesterday.
It was that's where the who's who were.
And Governor DeSantis, touting the fact that crime is at the lowest point it has been in Florida in 50 years, and here's why.
I think it's
Oh, that's not why.
The reason why you have crime that has spiraled out of control in so many of these different areas is because you have politicians putting woke ideology ahead of public safety.
And that's a big problem. And I love that he took Governor Pritzker to task. When all of us were stuck here, he got his family out before he shut down Illinois.
Yes, during COVID, even though your governor would lock you down and have his family in Florida living and free. And many other lockdown politicians would do that. It became like a cottage industry that they'd always end up attacking Florida, that we were somehow being reckless by letting people make their decisions. Then you'd see them down in Palm Beach, or you'd see them down in Miami.
And I love it because every single politician that ripped on Governor DeSantis
They went
to Florida.
Yeah.
Even AOC was down there in Miami enjoying herself with her fiance, living her life.
Right.
Escaping the lockdown state. So,
And you have to understand that when they, and when Pritzker throws this back at DeSantis and he says he cooked the books on the COVID numbers and everything else, photos and the internet will not let you lie anymore, because there you were. There was your family. They were down there. You can't lie about that.
And Pritzker recently spoke at an event in Florida to the Florida Democrats, calling Governor DeSantis homophobic with tendencies to promote racism.
What did he talk to? Like 10? Were there 10 people there? Isn't that how many?
No. There's some Democrats.
15
in Florida.
Democrats in Florida?
Maybe 20.
Okay.
But let's get more now from our guest, former state rep, former gubernatorial candidate, and good friend of the program, Jeanne Ives. Good morning, Jeanne. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So first off, where was Ray's invitation?
I was late. I asked late.
My gosh.
I give you wiggle room. You know that, because I found out about this Sunday, and I'm like, I've got to be there. I've got to go to
It
this.
was the hottest ticket in town.
No, that's cool.
Well, no, it actually was supposed to be very much word of mouth only, under the radar, text to text only of the invitation link, and then
What happened?
Of course, what was that?
What happened?
Yeah, what happened? Well, obviously, I think it came from Chicago FOP. That's what the reports are, that they kind of put out a bulk email, which we were told not to. I was asked to just get involved because, I do know a lot of folks. And unfortunately, I know a lot of law enforcement. I know other people that know law enforcement. It was really a law enforcement event, and that's ended up really being what it was.
And did
So
he
they had limited space available, and then it just became this, 500 people RSVP'd at least that were on lists that I saw. We could only fit, about 250 in the room. So unfortunately, people didn't get in.
What was it like?
It was a great event.
I was going to say, what was it like to see men and women of our, law enforcement agencies being talked to from somebody that actually really, at the end of the day, supports them?
Well, they were all very much excited to get in there and to be right up there in front with the Governor DeSantis, and there was a lot of cheering at times during his speech. This is a very much pro-law enforcement Governor DeSantis is, and it's really the opposite of what you see happening here, and in fact, there's one point that Governor DeSantis was remarking about how he was going to, if people were rioting, he was going to completely shut that down. If people were attacking police during riots, they were going to get prosecuted. And I was standing in the far back, and there was another policeman from Chicago there, and he's like, that happened to me. That happened to me. Somebody, threw stuff at him, and nothing happened. Well, under DeSantis, the police are respected, and their jobs are considered really important. In fact, he's giving $5,000 signing bonuses for people who want to move down there to become a police officer. They're also going to get $1,000 training bonuses. They get additional, if they have a really good family empowerment scholarship program in Florida, and if you happen to make too much money to qualify, if you're police, you get one of those scholarships anyway. So he's got a lot of incentives because it's just very much a sign of respect towards the police and the job that they have to do.
So this was the third city in his pro-police tour. I was hearing rumblings that he might announce his candidacy for president, which obviously didn't happen and would not happen on such a small stage. But when do you think that is going to happen, Jeanne?
Well, I'm hopeful that it's, sometime this summer. I mean, I think a lot of us are hopeful that he definitely, steps forward and goes to the national stage. We certainly could use everything from his fiscal management to his just common sense thoughts about respecting individuals instead of respecting government. And that's really the tenor of his entire time as governor. He said, no, I trust the people to know what's best for them. And so he's kind of formed all of his policies around that.
I mean, optically, you look at this guy, and we all know that what you have to look like in front of a stage, in front of a camera, politically. The wife, the kids, she's battling cancer. There doesn't seem to be a lot of dirt on this guy unless you just don't like what he stands for.
I don't think there's any dirt. If there was, they'd
have it.
They'd have
it.
Yeah.
The Democrats have really painted themselves into a corner here with who they have available to run should Joe decide he doesn't want to run and be 86 when he's done with the next term. I don't see any way that the Democrats have a shot here. Do you?
I don't see a way. And I hope Pritzker does run. I hope he runs because we need that sort of attention nationally on what's happened in the state of Illinois, which they have destroyed a great state. Their policies are destructive. And, DeSantis, too, he takes on his own party, too, by the way. Governor Pritzker doesn't do that at all. The Republicans were bemoaning the fact that Ron DeSantis had cut, billions of dollars from his last budget for projects that they wanted. Oh, well, I got to tell you, it was kind of fun because there were some rhinos in that room. I mean, I know a lot of these people. And when DeSantis started to go off on school choice and how important it is and school choice, I'm like, great. You people who have taken all that IEA money that are Republicans, pay attention. Pay attention. I thought it was, instructive for them as well.
How many rhinos were in the room, Jeanne?
Oh, there are plenty of them.
Oh my God. All right. So our I think common friend, because we both talked to him, especially about this, Paul Vallis, mayoral race is 1 week from today. And he denounced DeSantis' visit, calling him a right-wing extremist, saying, I wholeheartedly agree with Governor Pritzker that there's simply no place in Chicago for a right-wing extremist like Ron DeSantis. And I'm disappointed in FOP leadership for inviting him here to speak. His record of trying to erase LGBTQ community, banning books on Black history, and much more is not in line with my values. So the FOP leadership sponsored yesterday's event, and the FOP leadership is still backing Paul Vallis. And here's what he said yesterday when confronted by reporters. Did you really mean what you said about DeSantis?
I'm not paying any attention to DeSantis or any attention to, those, the DeSantis supporters. This is, the city's at the crossroads. We have a leadership crisis.
So why did he say anything at all? And what should he say to position himself to win?
Well, he made a colossal mistake, and I called him about it, whatever. And I texted him. I said, I just don't think that was productive. He's going to run the race he's going to run. It is what it is. But what's really shameful is like the name calling, because how productive is that? It's not. But that's also what you heard out of Governor Pritzker. Sean Casten, his first tweets are, he's a racist and a coward. Really? Really? Governor DeSantis, who served in uniform, is a racist and a coward?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are terrible folks. And then the whole thing about them and their special interest groups going out there and saying, oh, well, here's the reservation link. Here's the reservation link, and putting out public. Like, how small-minded do you have to be to step in on a private event? I mean, you're that scared of somebody coming from Florida to talk to people in Illinois? It's just remarkable. I don't know. I mean, you can't the records between Florida and Illinois are alarming. We spend 75% more than Florida does on education, K through 12, and their scores are better than ours. Florida scores are better than ours. We spend a lot more money. Just everything about Florida is so much better economically from a freedom standpoint than Illinois, and all these guys can do is name call.
I know. Look at, 21.8 billion budget surplus in Florida, no state income tax, open during COVID. We're 6.2 billion in debt and counting, and we have a 4.5% state income tax. So you can't even compare the two. And these politicians and these protesters, they don't even know there is no don't say gay bill. It's a parental rights bill, but they're going with the don't say gay. And they're not, are they just, can we ever get through to these people, or is it just a losing battle?
Well, the really funny thing about it is like how many teachers, public sector union folks do you know retire and go to Florida?
Yeah.
I think we all know them.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them that do that. And then of course, spot on. Pritzker and his wife, spent COVID time in Florida. It's just, they're just the biggest hypocrites out there, and they're inept and incapable. And imagine this. Things are heating up. I really am concerned about national security issues right now. I don't like what I see going on with the Russian-Ukraine war, with China and their military buildup. And if you really read into any of this, which I don't think any of these politicos do in this state, but if you really read into it, it's kind of a precarious situation here. And to have to elect yet another fumbling Democrat who can't exhibit leadership on the international level is just it's wrong.
You bring up
wrong.
You bring up a great.
None of these Democrats are putting their kids in uniform.
Jeanne, you bring up a great point, because we have we're told not to worry about these surveillance balloons. They're okay. There's nothing to worry about. They know what we have here anyway. You guys are all on TikTok, so these surveillance balloons shouldn't be any big deal. Now you got North Korea firing off more missiles. You got Ukraine and Russia. That thing just keeps amping up. At what point do people not get together and just say, "Hey, man, this is a test of our resolve to see how long we're going to let this happen, and that we let it happen is not good for national security. National security shouldn't be a left or right issue. It's absolutely disgusting right now. Wake up."
Well, I worry that we're not prepared for the response. I don't know that we are technically. I don't know if we are in terms of military assets, and I don't know that we are in terms of training of people. But the other thing is, there's so many people with soft minds and soft bodies in this country that I don't think that we as a populace are ready for what may happen.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there this morning. Jeanne Ives, co-founder of Breakthrough Ideas and former member of the Illinois House of Representatives for the 42nd District, and should have been our governor. I remember that election day. My kids were screaming out the winner, Jeanne Ives.
Wow.
And it was so cute. I loved it.
Follow Breakthrough Ideas. They do some really good work right there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Are you tired of how race, gender, and science have been weaponized to destroy America's most fundamental values and principles? Today, America is facing a critical threat to conservatism and Christianity, and it's time to rise and take a stand.
Join the Black Conservative Summit March 24th and 25th to hear from keynote speakers, participate in breakout sessions, panel discussions, and more. Speakers include